The next bill on the calendar for today is Senate File 5289. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 5289, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to economic development, the third engrossment.
Representative Hassan, before you explain your bill, do you want to put the House language into your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a DE because we're trying to adapt the better language, which is the House language. So we're just going to swap the Senate language for the House language. Thank you.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Hassan moves to amend Senate File number 5289, the third engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 5205.
Representative Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like I said, this is the better language, so please vote for it. Thank you.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment. Nope. Oh, I apologize. We have to... We are now voting on the Hassan amendment. My apologies. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion prevails. Now we do amendment, right? There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Schultz moves to amend Senate File number 5289, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A3.
Representative Schultz, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the chance to just offer this quick and simple and easy amendment for us tonight, members. We have an amendment before us to ensure that we're adding some additional eligibility requirements for the disabled worker program. And so we have a few quick words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, just to add in a little bit of additional information to ensure that it is Minnesota workers and those who have been displaced from their jobs who see the benefits to the gosh, what's the name of the program? The dislocated worker program, and to ensure that we are benefiting Minnesota's residents with our requirements for that program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I encourage support.
Representative Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Rep. Schultz, for the amendment. We already have, rules and regulations and policies, and indeed policies on the dislocated worker program. It has eligibility requirement, and the first one says, for somebody to be eligible for this program, you have to be eligible to work in the U.S. The second one says you have to be a Minnesota resident. If you want this information, I can share this with you, but these rules already exist. They're in the books, and I don't think we need to double down. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Daniels. Johnson, I apologize.
Mr. Speaker, members, Representative Schultz, thank you for this amendment. There's a reason that this is important. Rules can be changed real easy by the departments. It's much better if it's in statute. By putting it in statute, the department cannot change it. That's why it is important that we put this in statute. Members, please support the amendment.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is really quick and simple. I do appreciate that the department has put in the provisions under their own guidance, and I think that this is an important protection that is in line with the protections that the department has already adopted, and thus now it's great, especially at this time, Mr. Speaker, that we put this into law to ensure that our dollars are supporting Minnesotans. So I'm going to request a roll call.
Roll call being requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And then just to this very point, if we have agreement from the department that this is the policy that we should have, it should be in law. And the reason it should be in law, Mr. Speaker, is because Minnesota has become a top 5 destination for illegal immigrants coming to our state. And thus, a ton of our public services have become overrun by people who are here illegally, meaning Minnesotans are losing out on the benefits of the taxpayers of Minnesota. And so we need to ensure that our dollars are protecting Minnesota workers, especially those who have been displaced. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vote green.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Feist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had some really interesting data that seems like it would be highly relevant. The Cato Institute, which is a conservative-leaning libertarian organization with a mission to originate, disseminate, and advance solutions based on principles of individual liberty, limited government, free markets, and peace, did a really helpful study on the question of what is the relative contributions or burden of immigrants in the United States. And they found in a recent report that, quote, the receipts to outlay ratio for the first generation is greater than 1 for every level of government and in total, meaning that the first generation pays more taxes than it consumes in benefits, which seems relevant. Also, there's this organization called the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and they also looked into this. And they said that in reality, this group, which they were talking about undocumented immigrants, doesn't represent a significant cost or burden to the taxpayer's bottom line. And I think we all, at least on your side of the aisle, kind of trust what the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce has to say. So it sounds like immigration is really important to our economy and to our tax base. And for that reason, I do not think that this amendment is necessary, and I support Chair Hassan.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The chief clerk will now call the names of the members voting remotely.
Carroll.
Carroll? No.
Carroll, no. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Keeler.
Keeler, no.
Keeler, no. Cagle.
Hagel, no.
Cagle, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, no.
Pulowski, no. Walgamont.
Wolgamott, no.
Walgamont, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 58 ayes and 67 nays, the amendment does not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk, and the clerk will now give the bill third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 5289, as amended.
Third reading, as amended. Discussion. The member from Mower, Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. I wanted to highlight one specific part of this bill that I'm really proud to be able to author, and I want to thank you, Chair Zhang, for hearing this bill and for the bipartisan support that it received. One of the things that, I talk about in other places is just how we've created a dependency on grants that go to a lot of nonprofits, and that has constantly bothered me. But what I do appreciate is when we're able to see money go directly to something that will have a ripple effect and that is not a nonprofit. So the bill that I was able to author and has been included in this bill is a small amount, one-time appropriation that actually it creates a training program at Riverland Community College to create a program that will help get water operators and wastewater treatment operators certifications. This is something that it was the #1 priority in southeastern Minnesota, and so I was really excited to be able to carry this bill. We carried it in '23. It wasn't heard. Got it back again, and Chair Zhang was very kind enough to hear it. One of the things that I am excited about is that this is something that is a relatively small investment that's going to have a giant impact. I mean, something where when we kind of did a survey of how many short wastewater treatment operators and water operators are we missing or are we needing, and either missing or are going to be retiring in the next 5 years, we put out the call to southern Minnesota about, hey, can you give me an email or something about how much, if you're in this boat, would you be benefiting from this training program? And the amount of emails that we received was overwhelming. And so we know this is a need. We know that this type of targeted investment that is going to create a pathway for this training program is going to be impactful. And since it is a core function of government to have clean water, it is really important that this investment was made this year. So I'm really hoping, knowing that it was bipartisanly supported in the other body, I'm hoping that as this goes into conference, that it's something that will be continued to be supported. So thank you again, Chair Zhang, for including this, and I look forward to seeing that this will be included in the final bill as we go on for final passage. Thank you so much, Chair.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Zalesnikar.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Chair Zhang, and thank you, Lead Baker. Workforce Committee was an honor to listen and to learn, and probably towards 3/4 way through, when I was listening and learning, I wondered what we could do for Greater Minnesota and for the state with nursing. And Chair Zhang said, write some bills. And that's what I did, and I'm happy to see that this will have bipartisan, I believe, support for the state. The nursing bill is really creating a center of excellence using the University of Minnesota and the state schools. We have a huge nursing shortage issue in the state, serving on the Aging Task Force and also the Emergency Service Task Force. This isn't a program that's going to serve just northern Minnesota. It really, truly will benefit the state. I believe we need 535,000 nurses, and we're graduating like 55,000 nurses. So we have a huge problem and a very aging population. And so I'm very happy that Chair Zhang saw that as a concern for the state. The other three are more regional, but the $100,000 for Lake County Ambulance is really a pilot program to try that would benefit that North Shore between St. Louis County and Cook County, Lake County. It's in Lake County, but that whole region is a place that the entire state travels. We need to have ambulance services, and this is a program that allows students in 11th and 12th grade to have the funding so that when they graduate, they will be able to have a job. The other program is to create a career technical education program to grow the trades, bringing 3 high schools together in the region to get the unions involved in a more comprehensive, streamlined way the Chamber of Commerce and those programs that you're all familiar with, which will serve as a pilot for the North too. And the fourth thing is for Duluth Public Schools to initiate the trades in the middle school level through the computer programs that allow for students to learn what career possibilities are. Because sometimes if you can't see it, you don't even know it's a possibility. So I thank Chair Zhang for the possibilities that are available for the North and for the state, and I support the bill. Thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Weens.
A little trouble there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chair Zhang, Lead Baker, fellow members of workforce and staff. I enjoyed my time. In fact, that was sort of my Wednesday good feeling committee to go to. There were so many energized nonprofits that were doing good work, and I enjoyed especially those that had a really high charitable giving ratio, and I would ask them, what's the secret sauce? How did you break the code? How are you able to do your mission with such a just a high rate of return? And they would go on and basically tell me what the secret sauce was. And a lot of it was on the volunteer side, the professionals they had come in and maybe not paying a whole lot to the staff that were in the nonprofit and making certain it went to the core mission. And of course, at least the way my brain works, and this is beat into me in the military, it's mission, intent, and desired end state. So what are we trying to do? And some of my conversations with Deed about what is our placement ratio, how many folks are actually going in and getting a living wage job. And I finally developed a bill, a bipartisan bill, and adapted that as an amendment to the committee. It didn't pass, but the importance is that we maintain our trust not only with our taxpayers, but also those that we serve, that we're saying, hey, we are giving this grant that's administered to a great organization that is going to help you with the job skills or the cultural or language skills if you're a new Minnesotan. And I was hoping that would pass and be a resource that we could use, especially next year, because I think there will be some changes and we'll have to probably make some hard decisions. One of those experiences in my life that made me really think about what we're trying to do, kind of in the wake of the feeding the future issue, and I see that as an opportunity for us to maintain that trust with the public. I think there's so many voices out there about doubting government's ability to get things done, that we need to correct that, and we need to do that in a bipartisan way. My last duty assignment, I was selected as a by name to join the three-star command that was transitioning in the National Capital Region. I had served with the three-star general before K3 in Afghanistan, and we had worked on anti-corruption and counter-corruption and with the Afghan national security forces and government to make certain that the resources that they were given went to the purpose that they were for, and helping them establish an IG office. And culturally, that was really not something that they wanted to do. And we had to encourage them, because the donor nations at a certain point are not going to want to continue to give resources if you're not using them for what they're intended to do. Well, fast forward, coming to DC with K3, and K3 sitting down with his new command elements, and he asks the question to this new staff that he's just joining, and we're assisting him So what's your success metrics? And the first guy stands up very proudly and he says, we're spending all the budget that we've been given, we'll have it totally spent. And if you give us more, we can spend that too. And K3's face, glaring at this officer, visually ripped his face off and crapped down his throat. And that officer didn't understand. This is one of those behavioral modification things. K3 kept his composure, and he said, success metrics. Spending money, spending the people's money is not a success metrics. What that is you're spending a resource to achieve a certain goal. What is your desired end state? What are you trying to get at? And the officer was fumbling, and K3 goes back to him, it is readiness. We're building readiness. We need your success metrics. So went on to transform that command to make certain it was meeting that intent. In DC, a lot of times it's spending resources. The military is famous for it. I mean, at one point, when I entered service, we had the $500 toilet seats. And Command Sergeant Major, whenever you dump a lot of money into something and you don't have controls, things are going to go haywire. So having said all that, Chair Zhang, thanks. It was a pleasure. I wish you would have taken the success metrics, but they're still out there if you want to use them next year. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I've been spending a lot of time going through this bill and trying to figure out exactly how this bill is going to benefit and strengthen our workforce. And I think I figured it out. The best I can come up with is that this bill is going to support a whole lot of executive directors of nonprofits throughout the state. That's what we're actually funding in this bill. We're paying salaries for executive directors of nonprofits. That's the workforce we are considering and benefiting and building up in this bill. What a racket! What a racket! It's just shocking that after all the, at least you pulled out that one nonprofit that was very directly engaged with feeding our future. At least you had the good sense to pull that one out. But these direct appropriations to nonprofits are wild. We're not strengthening workforce. I would love, I can't wait until we come back and we have an opportunity to actually dig into these and see just what exactly we have accomplished with all of this spending. What is it, $17 million in spending on these nonprofits? $17 million on these nonprofits, mostly. There are a few good projects in here. That's usually the case, right? There's a few nuggets. But nope, $17 million that is going to go to pay for salaries of nonprofit executive directors. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I don't know how you vote for this bill. $17 million. I'm going to need a pretty big Tupperware container for $17 million. Store that in there. Unreal. Unreal. Members, we have to get to a point where we are willing to say enough is enough. We have to be willing to get to a point where we actually choose to put money in programs that are vetted and work. We have to get to a point, there's a hard concept in leadership, but when you are a leader, The hardest thing you can do is say no to your friends. That's the hardest thing to do, is say no to your friends. One of my mayors was here just yesterday, and I said, I'm sorry. No. That's what you gotta do, folks. But with the length of this bill, with the list of these projects, with this $17 million, it's very clear that you have not figured that out. You have not figured that out. This bill does not show leadership. This bill shows cronyism. This bill shows that we're gonna prop up dozens of nonprofits, pay their executive director salaries, and not worry about actually doing good work with this money. We got to figure out how to be leaders in this body. We have to figure out how to care about results, how to care about being good stewards of the resources that are in our care. That's our job. It's not our job to say yes to every friend who runs a nonprofit who knocks on our door. It's wrong. It's embarrassing. Stand up. Stand up. Be bold. Be leaders. Good grief. Learn to say no, folks. Learn to say no. Learn to care about actual results. This bill, what we're talking about here is workforce. Let's actually build workforce. It's the number one problem we have in this state. Across all sectors, across everything, this is the number one thing that we hear from folks. Workforce, workforce, workforce. But this bill, it's like Oprah. You get an executive director, and you get an executive director, and you get an executive director. We're just gonna pay all your salaries. Maybe someday we will care, but clearly that is not this day.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Speaker. It's been a long day, and I guess it's already almost 9:30. But I wanted to make sure that we take a moment to thank Chair Hassan for her tireless work to create jobs and support Minnesota's workforce, while also giving folks another reason to vote green tonight. That's because, most important, I guess for me, I want to thank her for including my bill, House File 4249, in this jobs funding bill to create the new Explore Minnesota Film Office. It's also my bill this year, but it's a culmination of decades of work by others before me, like Chair Les Lagarde, and so just want to thank him for that, even though he's probably taking a break after the tax bill. And so I want to bring this up also and thank him for getting us this far, because this new office in the state of Minnesota would be tasked with the oversight of film production job programs and the film production tax credit that most of us passed last year, along with promoting Minnesota as a place for film and television production. This will be a boon to our economy in Minnesota and make our state a leader in the film industry. And in case you're wondering, it is not a nonprofit. But most important tonight, I just want to make sure that Chair Hassan gets her flowers before you leave us, because you have done so much for us here. So thank you for your work and your vision. Vote green.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've noticed a few things in this bill. Representative New Brindley, some nonprofits do good. AEOA is a very good organization. It stretches from northern Minnesota all the way to Sandstone, and they do a lot of good work. Representative Igo got some funding for a bus garage to help The PFA, as a mayor of Ely, Minnesota, I worked with the PFA a lot with WIF funding, all these different funds, and they're in here. One of the things I will talk about a little bit on the water infrastructure funding program, they doubled the amount from 5 million to 10 million that you can use, which is a great idea, but somehow nobody put any money in the WIF account, and we're low on the WIF account. So having more is good, but we need more in it to make it work. These are the accounts that get rated by the PFA public, my brain is going here 1,000 miles an hour, Public Finance Authority, and those dollars are vetted by these different organizations. So it's not just going willy-nilly. Everybody knows where the money's going, and you have to have a need, and you have to do different things. So I see some of these projects in here really are going to make a difference in greater Minnesota. I applaud them for doing that. And I just want to make sure that the people in my communities know that we're working hard for them and we're trying to keep things going so it makes Minnesota a livable state to live in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Wright, Representative McDonald.
Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Just in regards to Representative Lee's comment on Explore Minnesota establishment of the film board, I've been in a couple of films in Minnesota, been honored to be a part of that, and as a photographer and a videographer, I know the importance of that on the economy. The movie A Simple Plan was filmed in Delano. I played a Academy Award-winning performance in that film. You can, if you freeze frame the film, you can see my performance. It was very good, and it was very good for the economy of Delano and Wright County. Grumpy Old Men, of course, was filmed, Mighty Ducks, several others. But folks, I also have a good friend in Wright County who works in the film industry. He worked on many, many films in Hollywood. I won't mention all of them. But he was very excited that we passed several years ago they had the snow bait when Jesse Ventura was our governor. And then the governor took it away because he was, I don't know why he took it away, but with that, so did many films. They left Minnesota. So then we established another Minnesota Film Board to bring in money here. Now, as a businessman, and I had some kickback from my conservative friends because they said, well, you shouldn't be subsidizing Hollywood. Well, that may be the case, but unless you build it, they will not come. So if a film production company comes to Minnesota and wants to put in 5 or 10 or 20 million, I think it's fair to say we can give them 25% of the money that they spent in our state, including restaurants, hotels, gas stations, and caterers and several others. I'm fine with that. I think that's good economic sense and good business sense to give them a portion of the money they came back. But we're spending a lot of money to establish a new Explore Minnesota Film Board. Explore Minnesota Film. We already have a board, and unfortunately they weren't as successful as they should have been. We put millions of dollars into a kitty to attract Hollywood to come here and other industrial films. It's not only Hollywood, folks. Many industrial films, such as Ecolabs and 3M and some of our Fortune 500 companies, film here in Minnesota. And they too should be have an opportunity to have some of that money that they spent, first and foremost. But this particular money that you're establishing a new film board called Explore Minnesota Film is, boy, Representative Lee, I hope that it is successful because what they have done in the past has not worked. My friend, I'll call him Pete, it's not his name, but again, he's worked on many films in Minnesota and elsewhere. It's been dead for many years. He's had to seek some other employment. We've established millions of dollars as a film credit. Some of my friends don't agree with that. Fine, I can fight that. I'm okay with that, as long as I get a good role in the film. But it's not worked. It's not brought the kind of film that we want here to Minnesota. It's not brought the economy, the economic vitality that we hoped there would be, like in Georgia. Many films are produced in Georgia, TV shows, Netflix, and primetime video, all of those. Many, many films in Georgia, because they have a very robust film rebate program. But Representative Lee, we're spending millions of dollars to create another film board that was a failure from the past. I truly hope that this works, but I'm afraid that if I'm still here in a couple of years, I hope I don't say I told you so, that it was a failure. I hope not. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I want to be optimistic. But we've done this already. We've had a Minnesota Film Board. And we've given them, you and I, who voted, I voted, I think, last year, or whenever it was, to give them money. And got a little pushback in my district. And I'm okay to defend that, because it brings economic vitality to our communities, small towns. Representative Listegard was in a film too. He's a movie star. He's not even here, but you should look him up as well. He's a movie star in a couple of movies. But it has not worked before. So what makes you think spending another couple $1 million with a new film board called Explore Minnesota Film Board will work? And it didn't before. You know, what's the Einstein's quote of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again is insane. Expecting different results. Thank you, Representative Nelson. I hope this works. And I don't want to ramble on because it's late in the night. It's Friday night. Some of our rural members have hours to drive. I only have an hour. Some have 6 to 4. Some of your rural metro members have your home in no time. But it hasn't worked before. And we spend and we spend and we spend. This particular bill, Representative Hassan, spends a lot of money. I wrote it down here, but it's millions of dollars. Oh yeah, $17 million. Some of that is from last year's general fund. That's carried over. I get that. Because we didn't spend it last year, so we'll bring it into this year. That's a good thing, I guess. We already voted for it. But, you know, last year, and you've heard this before, and I'll be brief, I promise. You spent the $18 billion surplus and another $10 billion in new spending. When I got elected, it was $34 billion in 2011-12. That was our budget, $34 billion in 2011-12. It's 14 years later, and we're almost at $52 billion and growing. Or no, 72, yeah, from last year, $72 billion. There's been no reason, in many folks' opinion, that after spending $10 million last year, plus the $18 billion surplus, that we should spend any money more today. In some of your bills, in the majority, there are very important projects. Some are just necessity, and some are wants. But we have to have control. Representative New Brindley stated it as well. We have no control in spending. Do you really think we should spend another $500 million after spending what we spent last year? Almost record proportion of spending? With spending comes taxation. I don't know, that's the message I take back to my district, folks. At the end of the day, this year, because last year was very difficult. I won't bring in some of the social issues, because that was heart-wrenching. But this year, the spending, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, is that what they call you nowadays? Representative Tapke? The spending is just, you know, to put another generation in debt is immoral. We've read that from our founding fathers. I think Thomas Jefferson said that. And we will continue to put them in debt with this spending, as our Minnesota management budget had indicated that in 25, 26, or 26, 27, that we'll be in a deficit. As I look through your bill, Representative Hassan, the spending, spend. And again, Representative Hassan, there are some worthy causes. Everything is a worthy cause, in some opinion, you know. But we have to control our spending. I don't know, you know, I became a grandpa for the second time 3 weeks ago, and some of my friends are moving out of the state. They're going to a state that's a tax-free on their estate tax, called the death tax, their Social Security tax, their tax-free, and an income tax. Now, I'm just a poor photographer from Wright County, from Delano, but some of my friends that I work with, they can save as much money going to a free state because you've taxed them to death. And I hate to pick on the film board or your Representative Lee because I'm an avid fan of the cinema, and I'm in favor of spending some money to create money. That's a good thing. But your bill is more money on a project that has failed for the last 4 or 5 years. So unless the language in your bill has hard love, you ever hear of hard love, the school of hard love? Unless your bill really gets to the heart of having every penny spend money to create it wealth, it'll fail just like the last film board. I hope that you looked at those issues. There's much more important things to talk about than just the film board, but they've not done a good job. And my friend who I mentioned works in the film industry. There's no business. How much did we spend? Can I ask someone to yield for a question? What did we spend last year for the Minnesota Film Board? Who can I ask? Anybody? 25 million is what I heard. And he and many others are not working. Not for Hollywood, not for industrial, not for campaigns. Oh, I take that back, folks. My friend worked on many campaigns, several for the DFL, and several for Congress and Senate, because they got more money than we here in the House and the Senate. But other than that, there has generated no business. And here we spent millions of dollars to entice the film industry, including Hollywood and our local companies here, to spend money here in Minnesota, and there's no business. It's a shame. And again, I'll quote our founding fathers, it's immoral to spend money and put our next generation in debt. And that's what we're doing here. Representative Lee, I sincerely hope that your section of the bill will bring in economic vitality and money into our state to help pay down our debt. And I'll help you with that if you want. The simple plan. Look at the film. It's a great film. Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton, Bridget Fonda. I have a pretty good scene in there myself. But we need to be careful spending our tax dollars on projects and industry that we know in the past has not done so well.
The member from Morrison, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I am sitting here tonight and contemplating what things I would be doing on a Friday night, I think about sitting around the fire with my friends and just inviting everybody around the lake to come and enjoy an awesome night like tonight is. And oftentimes when we're doing that, and I'm sure that this happens to many of you, oftentimes easily divulge into what's happening at the Capitol, what's going on, what bills are they trying to pass, what are the priorities, what do you see in this session? Are they focusing on, things like the flag? People are concerned about the flag back home in central Minnesota, and I think that will get its day in the sun. But on nights like tonight, around a fire, you also get questions about bills like this one that are spending money, spending taxpayer dollars, and handing them to organizations that don't fulfill the mission of economic development. And so I wanted to ask, would Representative Koznick yield?
He will yield. Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Koznick, what would you say the purpose and the mission of the Economic Development Committee is?
Representative Koznick.
Thank you. Representative Schultz is the GOP lead on economic development. I'll just want to thank my committee members, both on both sides of the aisle. But for our side of the aisle, we kind of established 3 pillars, kind of broad-ranging, but generally we feel that the economic development dollars and the work at DEED should encourage and support diversity of sectors across the state and across sectors, a variety of different businesses and industries that are robust, that are resilient, and they're modern, and that they would be current. We also, Representative Schultz, want to enable innovation, ingenuity, and encourage the entrepreneurial spirit by promoting a business climate that's responsive to the needs of business and the speed of business as well, with policy and programs that work to reduce bureaucracy and also the burdensome regulations. And then the third pillar that we have that we think is important to creating a strong economic development in the state of Minnesota, that of course we want to promote economic growth and activity that's statewide, not just in one part of the state. And I think in many cases, I think Chair Hassan has, and the committee has worked well to try to balance out targeting both all areas of the state. But we also want to make sure that the growth and the activity, we're not just flourishing in different regions, but also competitive, not within the state, but within the world. And so those are kind of the areas that we on our side of the aisle take a look at and hope that the committee can try to use the resources that are given to the state of Minnesota within the committee and throughout DEED to kind of focus on those three areas.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just find that important. You know, when we're talking about spending another $17 million of our taxpayer dollars, there are some concerns within this bill. Look, there's no way it could match last year's bill where $500 million went to nonprofit organizations. And yet, this one still has several concerning provisions and additional appropriations that are going to nonprofit organizations. And it's just plain bizarre. Like, we have grown government so much during these last 2 years that not only is state government growing, and do we have new state government agencies and something like 2,000 new state employees, but now we have a bill before us where the only jobs that are being created are just those to pay people within nonprofit organizations. And, you know, whether we're looking at Propel or the New American Development Center, frankly, there's a big part of me that thinks that the appropriation to the New American Development Center is nothing more than skirting state laws around assisting people who are coming to our country illegally. I mean, I can't tell you all the things that organization does. I can't tell you every single person who walks through their door. But there's $1 million in this bill that's being handed to that nonprofit organization. And while I'm sure there is some good that comes from that and benefits people who are here legally, I'm also quite certain that that organization also serves people who are here illegally. And if this is about economic development, we should get back to the very basics. And to Representative Koznick's point on the principles and priorities that we should be focused on, it should be focused upon growth and setting up government, whether on a local level, but here certainly at the state level, to enhance entrepreneurship, to enhance local communities' ability to invite private investment in our communities. That's what this should be about. And certainly over a long period of time, the past leaders of the state have set up some positive programs that have allowed for economic development and for growth. And those are the basics that we need to get back to, focusing on things like infrastructure, focusing on things like building out new business parks that bring more growth and private investment in this state. That's what we need to be focused upon. But frankly, this bill, this $17 million, I don't know that it's going to help create any new jobs. I really don't. I've been through it quite significantly, and I haven't heard from any debate that's happened so far that there's a certain target of, for our $17 million, here are 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000 new jobs that are going to be created, or even projected to be created because of the new development that's going to happen because of this. Instead, what I think we see with some of these handouts to nonprofit organizations, We're paying for people's salaries at a nonprofit organization, or just missing the mark entirely. And so I get concerned about the general direction that we're going. We need to work to protect the taxpayers' dollars. At the end of the day, it's that. Because people back home around the fire, they think that $500,000 to go to Propel or the New American Development Center, $1 million, they think that's wasteful. That's what they think. And they think that their money should be back in their pockets because they know how to spend it best, especially in an economy like the one we live in today, where people are having a hard time paying for their groceries or their electric bill and finding a job where their family income can grow. With the high costs of products, goods, and services, we can't have this sort of irresponsible legislation that is ultimately going to make Minnesota more unaffordable, considering that we already have a deficit on the horizon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member from Dakota, Representative Ryer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a really good bill, and I've been honored to be on both the Economic Development Committee, chaired by Chair Hassan, and on the Workforce Development Committee, chaired by Chair Zhang. And the thing about this bill is that if you look just at my suburban district, Eagan and Burnsville, it's a microcosm. We have people from dozens of countries, dozens of cultures, dozens of education levels and needs, and people with disabilities, people who have been homeless, people with substance abuse issues, mental health issues, all of the people who you can see in this bill who have programs designed for them, led by people who understand them and who can connect with them. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of need. We cannot set up a cookie-cutter assembly line for workforce and economic development and expect it to help our state continue to thrive and the people in it be able to blossom. Now, I want to talk about one bill, the one that I have in here, as an example of a success. It's the Minnesota Family Resilience Partnership. It's been around in Minnesota since 1982. It used to be called the Displaced Homemakers Program. It serves about half people with disabilities, half people of color, about 95% women. And if you would imagine being someone who had spent their life caring for their family, living in their home, doing all of the things that make a house a home if that's your life, and suddenly your partner's gone, divorce, death, and you're not only bereft, but you have no way of knowing how you're going to be able to take care of yourself. This program comes in, it uses 6 nonprofits across the state in a network serving 50-some counties in the state and providing incredible value, incredible outcomes, costing about $1,500 per participant per year compared to an average deed cost of over $3,000, with an incredible return on investment. But the thing that it makes it stand out is the results of women, men, people, non-binary people, trans people who go there, all of the people being able to say, I now have a future. I now have the ability to know how I'm going to care for myself, care for my family. I've been able to count on my community to lift me up, and lifting up the people in our state, lifting up the people in our communities is what these programs do. It's why I am so proud to support this bill, and I ask you all, vote green.
The member from Dakota, Representative Kosnick, was just there. That was an entrance. All right, Representative Kosnick.
Thank you. I was thinking maybe we had a few more speakers, but I want to thank Chair Hassan for her work on the committee as a retiring member. Like I said in committee, you've represented your community very well and did a fantastic job chairing the committee, so you can be proud of that work. And also understanding that, this isn't a budget year, so I didn't expect a big budget target. We did an incredible amount of spending last year. Has been said, we grew government 40%, the huge $72 billion budget. And yet this bill still spends $17 million, not a lot of it in the economic development area compared to the workforce area. And we just heard the tax bill, and there were some good provisions that our members offered as amendments to offer permanent long-term tax relief. And that is, to me, a part of economic development for entrepreneurs to lower the burdens on business owners, small business owners, mom and pop shops, to continue to thrive and achieve their dreams. And so we missed the mark here again this year. We're going to spend, I think, over a $500 million in supplemental spending in addition to the funds that we spent last year. And so I think there was, that should be our focus. And, they were kind of proud that the tax bill didn't raise taxes this year, but I would actually disagree with that statement. The local sales tax option that would have to be collected by small businesses, the entrepreneurs that we generally try to help in this committee, the local sales option tax would increase the cost on families throughout the state, an estimated $430 million a year. So that's almost $1 billion in a biennium. So in fact, we're continuing to spend and grow government, and the previous bill actually did raise taxes about $1 billion a year just in that provision alone. So the money in this bill could have been spent to actually give tax relief that would help all small businesses and entrepreneurs, and many of them are young, new American families, first generation Minnesotans. And to reduce the tax burden, the regulations is equally important to these small businesses, whether you've been in business 1 year or 15 years, or my friend here, how many years have you had your business? 35. 35 years. Every year, there continues to be burdens and regulations, and they keep getting more expensive and more burdensome. And so I think reducing the overall burdens on the entrepreneur spirit in Minnesota is something that overall this legislature is missing. Yes, we want to help new Americans, new immigrants, and new business owners, but continuing to add to the tax burden, continuing to add regulations. We talked about the labor bill a couple days ago or yesterday, and all the regulation that goes into that disenfranchises people to even get into business or makes them close their doors when they've had a good opportunity and working hard, but they still can't make it. And so we want to help incentivize those who take risk and endeavor to achieve their own dreams of starting or operating their own business. And I want to give you an example. One of the things that we did was sometimes we give the grants. I'm trying to remember the type of grant. It was for a startup business in the medical. I can't remember the exact grant program. But it was a couple college kids that actually came from my district. They went to high school in Lakeville. A couple of them were, I think, hockey players too, but then they went off to college. They graduated, went off to college, worked hard, got a degree. I think all 4 of them were 3 of them were in engineering and 1 was a business major. And they came back and said, let's start a business. And they're working their tails off in a medical business, and that's where we missed the mark in this bill. We should be investing more in manufacturing. We did a little bit last year, and the money that we provided was half of what was asked, and they've already used up all that money to help other businesses expand and be more productive, to expand and reinvest in their manufacturing businesses. We did a little bit last year with the biomedical and semiconductor, but we need to continue expanding those growing sectors of our state to make our state resilient and continue to grow and be on the cutting edge and be competitive, not just in the country or the Midwest, but like we said, we want to be competitive across the world. And in many areas we were, but I think if you talk to a lot of business people across the state, we're losing that competitive edge that we used to have. 3M really isn't headquartered in Minnesota anymore. They're in Texas if you really count the numbers. So we need to incentivize business owners to continue to work hard and to want to stay here in Minnesota, but we need to incentivize them by reducing the tax burdens, reducing the regulations, and there will be time to offer the grants and stuff that we do, but we've missed the mark the last couple of years by providing long-term tax relief. And so I won't be voting for the bill this year, but I do appreciate the time on the committee, and I wish you the best, Chair Hassan.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Baker.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for hearing a few moments of my thoughts about the Workforce Development Committee. I think that it was really actually quite fun working with Chair Zhang. I think if the best part of the bill, or the best part about the working with Chair Zhang is you get to hear him speak, because he's a man of a few words. He doesn't speak until he needs to speak, and I think he's looking forward tonight like probably not so much. But he's a good guy, and he runs a good committee, and he runs a strong committee, and he got dealt a huge number last year of dollars to hand out. And his goal was to get it out to as many people as he could in a fast manner, and we were like a bonding bill. Literally, we had $500 and some million that was his target. It's not his fault, it's what he was given. And leadership, this is actually, I think we're hearing folks say, how do we do all this spending? I mean, Representative Schultz and Representative New Brindley, and what happened with all this money? This was not a good decision by the leadership of the DFL to put so much money on that side of the table. When I'm yelling and begging Chair Knorr and Chair Fisher and the folks in our mental health stuff, where's the money? Guys, it was over here. A lot of it was over here. It was too much. It was too much. I think when I first came into the committee last session, I was really excited to be part of something that we could try to, my gosh, I'm an employer. This is a good way. We can really dive into how do we get out of the way for more employers to hire people? How can we do smart things to incentivize people to hire, not just hand out money? I didn't really think about it that way. And I felt like last year, again, huge target, $530-some million. That's almost as much as the state office building expansion. Think about that. And the problem that I have been finding now, a year later, isn't that some of that money is not going to do some good. I'm not saying it was all not, but the thing is, with an office building or bonding bills, you get some brick and mortar when you're all done. You get some cool stuff. And what I'm hoping we get with this, and we really can't really put our fingers on a lot of this stuff, is are we going to have sustaining jobs? Well, we sure hope we will, but we don't have guarantees. We don't know for sure. You know, I think the deed bill coming through later on that'll address some of the work that they need to do with the paid family medical leave is still yet to come. I know that's their highest priority, is to get a lot of their technical clarity in the bill. We need to talk a lot about that. That's another thing. I knew this was going to be an important thing, and I want to really give Chair Zhang a lot of credit, because I was kind of I'm sure I was a thorn in the side many times, because I demanded that we had plenty of time for those kind of conversations, and he honored that. He made sure that happened, and he actually brought the bill back a second time in the first session, and so he's a man of his word, and I really do appreciate that, because we needed to talk a lot about what that was going to do to affect all businesses, all counties, all cities, all school boards, everybody that has an employee of some sort, nonprofits, is going to be affected by employer mandates. And this was where I really wanted to focus on. And we did plenty of that. We didn't get what we wanted, but we sure talked a lot about it. But again, last year, there was over $500 million in this target. About $445 million went directly to appropriations to a lot of nonprofits. DEED is in charge of executing those contracts. Normally, I think DEED will have a $60, $70, $80 million run in a year. This was, again, 5 times that. A couple weeks ago, out of that $445 million that they were trying to get out the door, they still had yet to account for, or not to execute and get out the door, $152 million. Hasn't been executed as of a couple weeks ago. This is from the Office of the Legislative Budget Office. So my concern is that even if next year comes around and whoever has the gavels is going to look back and say, well, how was our return on investment? How did we do? A lot of reports are going to be looked for. Well, a lot of these folks aren't going to even have the time to really give us any honest answers, because they won't have the time, because they received the money a year and a half, 2 years late, because they couldn't get it out fast enough. So my main message tonight isn't that we didn't work hard on trying to do some good things, but this was an area that the majority got it wrong when it came to setting your targets, because we really could have used a lot of this money for what I believe government should be a part of, and that's helping people in health care. It's helping mental health. It is helping education even though it was a record spending year in education, a lot of money here could have been used, I think, better in priorities that I think government needs to stay in. You know, this year there were people back for second dibs. You know, last year, for example, just one here, P-Fund came back. They got $375,000 last year. And this year they came back, they got $2 more million. And again, the allocations from the general fund, now again, our mother fund, everybody here, is the general fund. We all fight for dollars out of the general fund, right? And last year that was at $550 million. And this year the $17 million is out of the Workforce Development Fund. It's a different fund, and it's resupplied with other payments from employers and things, so that's kind of a self-generating fund. I wished a lot more money would have been used out of the Workers' Development Fund last year, and more of the general fund could have been used for things like health care, like roads and bridges, like tax relief, all those kind of things. But again, we have to be really careful with our money. Last year, government did not do well when it came to spending, accountability, and any kind of fiscal restraint. This example of our committee work was, at the end for me, was getting very frustrating. I think even my members could tell after a meeting I was getting angry because we were just doling out money. Now again, we've got money in our our side, and again, I thank the committee for that. There's some good projects here. There really, really is on both sides of the aisle. But it felt like a bit of a bonding year, a bonding committee, really, because we went through so many nonprofits. My biggest thing was we were trying to keep up with looking at all the nonprofit websites in the 990s to make sure they were accurate. What are they doing with the money? How long have they been in business? That was a lot to keep up with. So it wasn't like the committee wasn't working hard, trying to do good things. They've got a great administrator over there. I want to thank Casey for doing a great job on our side of things, and Travis did a great job with the DFL team and others. And so and Justin Brill as well. Thank you for that. Yep. And I just want to say, again, if we get these kind of targets, leadership really has to say, is this really where we belong? We built government way too wide this last 2 years. This was part of where we don't know exactly what kind of a return we're going to get on this. And now, in the next few days, we're going to talk about the finance omnibus bills. We're going to be scraping for dollars that should have been done last year. And a lot of it landed here. And I think we could have managed this a whole lot better. So I wish, I'd like to be able to vote for the bill. There's some good things in here. And I really am genuine when I say Chair Zhang did a nice job. Chair Hassan in Economic Development worked hard on these things. But we need to prioritize better when we have limited dollars. We just never know what the future is going to hold. And right now, a lot of us do know we're going to be short. And I sure wish we could turn this time back and say this committee is an area we could have done a lot better planning and less spending, and we could have gotten a lot better results. Thank you, members.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Zhang.
Well, I had written a speech, but I wasn't called before third reading, so I'm going to keep it very short. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I am very proud of this workforce bill. It was crafted with the stories that were shared with us from Minnesotans from all across all corners of our state. And to highlight some of the projects here that weren't mentioned yet from many well-established community organizations like the Shakopee Chamber Foundation, a nonprofit organization championed by Senator Pratt and also our very own Representative Brad Tackey, which will help individuals in Scott County pursue careers in high-demand occupations. We also have $240,000 in appropriation led by Chair Vane to the Minnesota Zhejiang Hmong Workforce Program that will help high school, college, and adults develop skills and hands-on trade programs and mentorship programs with local businesses and entrepreneurs. Not going to CEOs, they're going toward high school kids and programs. We also have an appropriation from Representative Frazier in the amount of $75,000 to the organization Inspired MSP. This investment will help youth get hands-on experience, connect with industries, and exposure to prospective careers. Furthermore, we also are investing $1 million from the Workforce Fund to the nonprofit Lakeview Methodist Health, a nonprofit bill championed by our very own Representative Bjorn Olsen and also Senator Rich Draham. This $1 million nonprofit funding will help residents in Fairmount, Minnesota to finish building a state-of-the-art child care center. We had folks who drove many hours down here to the Capitol to share with us their stories. But I'm just a little confused. I'm looking back at some of the fundings that we did in the last decade, and I'm looking at the 2017 jobs bill from Representative Garofalo, and I find here there's a direct appropriation for a nonprofit from Representative Andrew Brindley. Representative Andrew Brindley, you funded $2 million to nonprofit organizations. This is bonkers. I've been waiting all night to say that. I'm going to wrap this up. It's late. We are making an investment of $17 million from the WDF fund to help Minnesotans. These institutions, many who you all have worked with, are required to comply with the rigorous standards passed into law last year regarding grants management. In this bill, we're looking at $15 million coming to the Metro and $10.3 million statewide, including reappropriations. And so I also want to thank Vice Chair Brand for some of the policy provisions here to expand our dislocated program, dislocated worker program. We also have a provision in here championed by Lead Baker that addresses employers who are paying into the UI system that's not accessible to undocumented workers, despite those who claim that undocumented people are dipping into our public funds. Members, thank you for the conversations tonight. As I noted, I'm very proud of this economic development and workforce bill. I want to thank all the Minnesotans who have shared their stories with us these last 2 years. Because of you, we are crafting these policies to address the challenges in our state. I also wanted to express my appreciation to our wonderful workforce development team, our page, to my committee legislative assistant, Bonzi Vu, who is here with us tonight, to our committee administrator, Travis Reese, research staff, DFR research staff, Dave Sullivan, GOP staff research, Casey, Justin Cope from Nonpartisan, Ashley Ng, Anna Cholene, and my media writer, Gina Vega. And I also, again, want to thank our committee members from both sides of the aisle, Lead Baker, Vice Chair Brand, and I also want to thank Speaker Hortman for believing in me, for allowing me to be part of this work to make historical investments this biennium to ensure that the needs of Minnesotans are met. To put 2 chairs from marginalized communities who understand what so many Minnesotans are going through to lead this work for our state. So I want to thank you, Madam Speaker Hortman. And last but not least, I want to give a big thanks to my sister from another mother, Chair Hassan, for being my partner in this work the last 2 sessions. I appreciate you challenging me, pushing me, and I don't know if we're gonna come back here and speak on this bill again, but if this is the last time I get to speak, I just want to say thank you. I'm really gonna miss you. Folks, this bill passed out of committee with bipartisan support, and I look forward to having that again tonight. Vote green.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hassan.
See, he just made me cry, so I don't know how I'm going to speak. Mr. Speaker, members, I know it's late, and I know some of you are going to drive 4 or even more hours, and I want to thank you for your dedication, because if you're not dedicated to this work, you wouldn't be here. You would be with your family. You would be spending Friday night and having dinner with your family, having good conversations near the fire, right? I want to talk about what this bill is not about. A lot has been said about this bill. This bill is not about giving money to our friends. This bill is not about handing lottery tickets. You got one, and you got one, and you got one. I heard something about Oprah handing dollars. I wish that was the case. This bill is not about growing government. We really have to figure out where we strike the balance of, like, we don't want government to grow. We don't want nonprofits to do the work. Then who's doing the work? Because nonprofits, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I could be wrong, and I'm known to be wrong sometimes. In my opinion, nonprofits are stepping up to fill a hole that government is leaving behind. And government can't do everything. If we want to grow government, that's fine. Let's create another 10 agencies under DEED, and let's, expand that and make sure that DEED can provide every single, service that our community needs. But we don't want that. We don't want grow government. We don't want to give money to nonprofits then who takes care of our communities? And when I say our communities, I'm talking about every single community across the state of Minnesota. Every single community, the people that elected you and put you on those seats, that we go back and beg for their vote, who's going to take care of them? That is the question I would like to ask. This bill, just for the record, spends only $1 million of general fund, $1 million, and $17 million of workforce fund. And I think Lead Baker explained how the workforce funds are allocated, so I'm not going to go back to that. But we also had the opportunity to cancel some funds from last year. We gave $5 million to the city of Bloomington because we were trying to bid for the Expo, World Expo. Well, some people spent $40 million on that bid, so $5 million didn't cut it, so we didn't win. So we got that money back. And Rep. McDonald talked about the film industry. So we're not creating a new film industry. I just want to make sure that we are moving the current nonprofit to Explore Minnesota. And we're only spending $200,000 of general fund and using the film rebate program to pay for the rest. And you asked a question about how much money did we put in. In the last decade, we put in $23.7 million investment. And that resulted $108.7 million in state spending. If you ask me, that sounds like, a good investment. I really want to thank every single member of you guys here. This is probably going to be my last speech on this House floor presenting a bill. I was elected to bring the voice of my community to this chamber. And in the last 6 years, I just did that. That's what I did. Sometimes, people thought I was radical. Sometimes they thought that I was talking about, experience that people can't relate to. But I am an immigrant. Well, let me correct that. I'm a refugee. So I came to this country as a refugee because there's a difference between immigrants and refugees. And we don't have the time tonight to just talk about that. And I came to this country because America was kind enough to give us a second chance. And what was the most important thing for my family? Was getting a job. Simply getting a job. So we could take care of our family. While we always, a lot of people talk about, people ripping people off and, immigrants and people who are undocumented coming here and taking, being a burden to Minnesota and taking something from Minnesota, that is not what my family wanted. My family came here. We all worked really, really hard, put ourselves through school. My mom used to work 3 jobs so she can make sure that every single one of us is fed before we go to school. That is the story that we don't hear in this chamber. That is the story I want to leave you with. And when you remember that the lady from South Minneapolis, that you remember that she was a refugee who worked hard. I went to school and worked full time. And I remember going to grad school and working 8 hours, going to grad school at night, and spending all my Saturday doing homework. If that is not hard work, I don't know what hard work is. So I really want to encourage us to think about when we talk about undocumented people and immigrants and refugees and people who come to Minnesota, to think about, it is not easy to start over. It's not easy to come to an unknown country where you don't understand the language, you don't understand the culture, you don't understand anything, but you're expected to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, guess what? You don't have boots, or your boots don't have straps. And you're coming to a country that has existed 500 years, and people are way advanced than where you came from. That's the reality of our immigrants and undocumented people and refugees and people who are coming here. I tell you that story because it was an honor to serve in this House. It was an honor to serve under Abraham Lincoln. That was my dad's favorite American president. So if he was alive, he would be very proud that his refugee daughter who came to America was serving in this House and looking at Abraham Lincoln every single day. This bill spends money on the portion that's economic development. People echoed that this is not about economic development. Yes, it is about economic development. I represent South Minneapolis. My district was burned to the ground. All the businesses on Lake Street were burned. And when Speaker Horman gave me the gavel, I thought she was very intentional, because all I talked about was how our business, small business community, the mom and pop shops, were not helped by the government when the civil unrest happened, and many of them were underinsured. Where last year's work and this year's work just did that. We got grants for those businesses, we got money, loans for those businesses, and we are trying to uplift from the bottom. That has been my theory this whole time I've been here, because we all don't have equal footing in this. And you can't do things the usual way and expect, results. Somebody said the definition of insanity earlier, I think that was McDonald. It is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting change. We talk about disparities all the time. I'm tired of talking about disparities. I want to do something about disparities, and that's why I was intentional about this bill and last year's bill. This bill gives money to Arrowhead Economic Entity that works in Rep. Igo's district. They came to us, and their story was so compelling that I talked to my CA, and I'm like, we got to do something about this. We got to give money to this. And what I love about being a chair and being in that committee was that you get to have people that you would never have met come to your committee and tell you compelling stories about their communities. We had a young woman who came, I believe her name was Abigail, who told us why we should fund the Special Olympics. And she was so adorable and so cute, and I think she captured every single one of us' heart. And that's why we're funding Special Olympics in this. Well, guess what? It's not only because I fell in love with that young lady and I thought her story was compelling, but it also brings foot traffic to our downtown. We're always talking about how our downtown is dying. We need more foot traffic. More people means that there will be more spending in our restaurants, in our hotels, in our stores. That is what this bill is about. It's not about handing money to friends. It's about bringing foot traffic to our downtowns, bringing support to small businesses that have been struggling since COVID or even prior to that. It's about balancing the scale. It's a good bill, and I hope you can all support this, because when you support this bill tonight, you're pressing that green button. You're supporting Minnesotans all across the state. You're supporting Minnesotans who are struggling and just need that little boost so they can keep their doors open. Because the more stores that close and the more shops that close, that's a dent in our small businesses. I don't want to talk about the economic development because I think Chair Shang did a great job, but it was also an honor to serve in the economic development and the workforce, because all we heard was that our workforce is in crisis. We're in workforce shortage. So having the creativity of talking to nonprofits who are stepping up and saying that, hey, we see that there is a workforce challenge. We have a creative program that trains immigrants, that trains the underserved communities, that trains women, that trains the disability community, that trains people with mental illness. My background is mental health. And the worst thing that you can do for somebody who has mental illness is tell them to sit idle. There's a program in the workforce that actually funds that says we're going to fund to train people with mental illness so they can have a job and they can have a meaningful life and they can have a purpose. So that is why I'm proud of our work. I want to thank my lead, Kosnick. Thank you very much. I want to thank my Vice Chair Hansen, who is a fellow social worker and kept me in line. I want to thank every single member of the Economic Development Committee. We may have different opinions on how we want to do this work, but we were respectful. We debated things. We disagreed at the end, but all of us came there because we wanted to represent our communities. I want to thank our partisan and nonpartisan staff. Without them, we wouldn't have done this work. This is a hard work. And I want to just remind us to be compassionate and have mercy towards one another, because this is hard work. And our staff put in a lot of hours to prepare all the paperwork that are sitting in front of us every second. I want to thank the chief clock staff, who have to be here later than we do and who have to come in earlier than we do and never complain. They're always pleasant. They always have smiles. And whatever you ask them, they don't say no. They just find a way to do it. So thank you. I'm going to miss you guys. I know this is not a goodbye speech, but I thought I should take this opportunity to tell you that this is a great bill and you should vote for it. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Here we go. Yes.
The chief clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Carroll.
Carroll, aye.
Carroll, I. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Keeler.
Keeler, aye.
Keeler, I. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, I. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, I. Perez Vega.
Perez Vega, yes.
Perez Vega, I. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, I.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 74 ayes and 52 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to.